Hi, Naomi Stockman from my local hypnosis, and I'm just having a quick chat today about something that I think is interesting to everyone, which is health. So, being a human being, we have obviously our physical health, but there's more than just our body. We've got our four different areas of health, and so I'd like to just go through what they are and then talk about one of them. So, there's a whole thing between the mind and the body and the spirit, and I'm sure we've all heard of the mind, body and spirit. We even have a festival for it in Sydney, and we can appreciate that mental health and physical health and even our spiritual health are three things that are critical to well-being. And we may focus a little bit more on one area or on another area, but not everyone who has a fit and healthy body also has a fit and healthy mind. And similarly, not everyone who has a good mind or a sharp, healthy mind has a healthy body. So there's the different areas, and we all have probably something that we're stronger in. So there's a fourth aspect of our health that I'd like to introduce, and that is our emotional health. And our emotions can in fact affect our mental state and our physical state. Emotional distress can cause physical illness. Emotional constipation, I call it, can cause physical illness. So emotional health is so important. So spiritual health is probably the least clearly defined and spoken about just in our modern day society. But if you think back to when we lived in tribes or villages, our ancestors may have spent a lot of time, chanting to the gods and leaping around the campfire or going to their community churches and so forth. So there definitely was a lot of spiritual stuff in the past, and that's shifted a lot in our modern day community and looks a little bit differently, but we definitely still have a lot of focus on spirit. So today I'm specifically going to be speaking about emotional health. So you might have heard some of the buzzwords in the personal development fields. So things like emotional intelligence, emotional quotient, so EQ, IQ, and I'm sure we've met that super intelligent person that has the high IQ and has no emotional clue or social clue. And there's definitely different areas that we can be more strong in. So what is emotional health? Emotional health begins when we are small. So we learn how to move our body, we learn how to think, we learn how to speak, we learn how to behave, we learn all those things. But our emotions come up, they're a natural operational part of us, the same as hunger or thirst or pain or physical stuff. So our emotions are there to guide us, to tell us. They're an energy. They move us away from things and towards things. They are involved in our survival, and it all begins with attachment. So a baby comes into the world, and for safety, they need to be able to attach to their caregivers, to their parents or whoever is looking after them. So this is really, really important, that we need to be attached. We have to make those first critical bonds. And whether this happens well or it doesn't happen well, can affect us for the rest of our lives and our emotional health. The other part of our emotional health is that we need to not only be attached, but we also need to be able to operate as an individual, so have autonomy. So the ability to then go off away from our attached caregivers and feel safe being an individual. So there's the two things, attachment and autonomy. And it's like the basis or the foundation of being a functioning human being. So from there, we go into the actual experience of having emotional responses, learning how to process those emotions and respond to them and communicate them to the people around us. So accepting and trusting the emotions that we feel, being able to trust ourselves, trust our gut instinct, being able to accept the good emotions, the happiness and the love and the joy, and also being able to experience the full range of emotions in the way that they're designed to be experienced. So the anger, the sadness, the rage, all that kind of stuff. So society has trained us that anger is bad, that there's ugly emotions, they're not acceptable, it's not good, it's bad, and we're programmed with constant messages of shame and guilt. So things like grief and loss, we're not shown how to process them. People do that in private. It's almost like somebody dies and we all, don't know what to say, don't know what to do. There's things that we hide, that we face alone in our darkness. And it means that people are isolated when they actually need to be connected. And there's so little taught about how to be aware of our emotions, how to trust our emotions, how to sit with them, process them, experience them, and especially the negative stuff. So we're all programmed from the media and from society to pursue happiness, to pursue success and satisfaction and gratification and pleasure. It's like, look at this new thing, you need it, you want it, moving always towards that next overjoyed moment of, extreme pleasure. And you can see that in relationships. The moment things start to feel not so good, or we have to deal with the ugly parts of being involved with another human being, it can get too hard, and it can be easier to go and get a rush of dopamine and all those kind of good things by avoiding sitting with the negative emotions and doing something else. So we've basically got two drivers within us. We've got the pleasure, and then we've got the fear, or the pain. So pleasure dominates the marketing space, but not only pleasure, but there's also fear. There's so much fear dominating the marketing space because it's the biggest sales driver in the world, the fear. And fear can be anything. It can be the fear of feeling anything else than happy, fear of suffering, fear of being rejected, of being different, fear of lack, fear of failure, fear of limitation, fear of missing out. Yeah, we all know that one. And they even have a name for it, FOMO, fear of anything that causes us to feel not great. Yet deep down, we know that we need to experience and release and process these emotions. So emotions are energy, and energy cannot be created or destroyed. So that's where we often transfer these things onto other people unintentionally. And if you are a parent, this is a really big thing that we want to be aware of, because where's that emotion that's not processed, or it's been stuck within, or repressed, or, withheld, or not acknowledged, or not released? Where's that going to go when you have a family environment? It's going to go onto the kids, because they're the ones that have not yet been able to, push back. So we want to be aware of that. We want to be aware of that when we're in relationships. So sometimes we'll meet someone, everything's wonderful, things are good, and then that other person becomes the asshole. The other person becomes that person that brings up the pain for you, frustration for you, anger, resentment. Maybe they criticize you, bring up self doubt and fear and worthlessness. All these things that we may not have dealt with in the past come up to be dealt with. So that happens in relationship, because the thing about relationship is we are all there to bounce onto each other, the thing that we each of us need to face within us. So you know it yourself. If you think about your own parents, your own childhood, was your mother or your father needing some emotional therapy? Did their inability to regulate their own emotions affect you? And we're all affected by our family in different ways, some positive and some negative. So the things that affect us as children, we're learning from our parents how to respond to emotion. We're learning how to express it. We're learning how to self-regulate. We're learning how to act and react, when things happen in our lives. So often adults will display or model inappropriate or poor processing techniques, how to manage their anger, their sadness, their guilt, their shame, all that stuff, and then punish the children for when they begin to display those negative emotions. So, if a child becomes angry or it becomes distressed or whatever, it's like not pleasant to deal with that person's emotion, especially if you haven't faced your own. So we remember that attachment is the primary need of a small child. So if a parent becomes angry, that then threatens that primary need of attachment. So the child then learns that they need to keep everybody happy. So that's the creation then of a people pleaser. And the underlying belief when someone becomes a people pleaser is that I have to keep everyone else happy and my feelings are not important, or it's not safe for me to express them. So how does that pan out for a child over a lifetime, being constantly unable to express their own feelings and being consistently worried about the validation or the pleasing of other people? So needing validation, fear of rejection, fear of punishment, all that kind of stuff. It just builds resentment within that person. And we all have a level of resentment within us because nothing's gone our way the entire time. So long term, this kind of stuff, if it's not processed and expressed, repressed anger, repressed shame, repressed guilt, repressed sadness, all that sort of stuff affects us, our physical health. It affects our mental health, affects our relationships. From many years of working with people, I can attest that most mental and physical illness stems from our emotions. So that's why it's so highly critical for us to work on these emotions. And just because something happened a long time ago does not mean that it's being dealt with. That saying about time heals all wounds is not entirely true unless the work's been done to actually heal the wound. I mean, if I break my leg and then I just keep walking on it, whatever heals isn't going to be a great outcome, and I'm definitely going to have some kind of deformity there. So our emotions are no different. Our past pain's no different. So sometimes what needs to happen is just the release of those emotions that haven't been released. So it's a little bit like the chicken or the egg. So people come to me with something, it might be a weight issue or something else, a relationship issue. And it's so simple, to fix these things really. Like, think about weight. Just exercise more and eat less. It's that simple. So why do so many people find this difficult? And I'm no different to anyone else. It's because we're not in complete control of ourselves. We are not. Our unconscious is running our life. Our unconscious runs our body. That's the truth. So when we just go into life thinking I'm going to control my body. No, we need to start with the emotions. We need to start with the mind. We need to start with these things that are intrinsically within us, not without. So the cupcake on the kitchen bench is not the culprit. It's all the emotion that's causing us to want that cupcake, to get the pleasure from that cupcake, to get the distraction, the reward, all that kind of stuff. So we can, there's all this stuff about mind, doing things to, say affirmations and change the way we think, be positive, not negative. And that's all absolutely fabulous. But the underlying thing is that if the emotions are not there in alignment with the words, so you're saying, I am a fabulous person, I eat healthy food, and there's a whole stack of like huge resentment within you that's like being pushed down into your throat and into your chest and into your stomach, that's going to be there triggering behaviors that are going to respond to that. So we need to be dealing with these things, whatever's you've got trapped within you. And the thing is that it's hard to tell. I have people that say, I'm not angry, or I don't have anger. I've forgiven everybody. I only come into this world with love and light and wisdom and whatever. And my personal experience is that you are not aware of what you're holding on to, because how could you be? It's been there the whole time. The only time you'll feel it is when it's gone. So it's like, I don't feel the teeth in my mouth because they feel the way they've always felt. But if all of a sudden I had somebody else's teeth in my mouth, that would feel very unfamiliar to me. So we're familiar with what we've always had, and we're unfamiliar with what we have never had. And so if you're trying to shift something out of your life, a block or a restriction, my advice would be to stop focusing on whatever you think the problem is. The problem is never really the problem. There's always something else going on, and we start to focus holistically. We need to focus on all those things: the mind, the body, the soul. Our soul needs to be recognized and fed, and the rest of the stuff in our lives will just fall into place around that stuff. So emotions, thoughts, behaviors, it all links together, and our physical health, our cellular health. Our cells are so incredibly amazing. Each single cell is a little tiny self-propelling, energy creating, duplicating, manifesting, manufacturing energy kind of battery thing that we just take for granted. And there's so many of them in our body, just trillions of them. So at a cellular level, we are energy. Around our body is energy. Our thoughts are energy. Our emotions are a huge amount of energy, and working on those is part of the key to unlocking the peace and happiness that we're all looking for. Have a fabulous day. Reach out, connect, comment, share, all that kind of stuff. And I look forward to talking to you again.